response. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for recording. Okay, so that is my cue to start. Thank you so much, Samaya. So welcome to our PCOS healing webinar. I am really excited to share with you the healing power of food, especially for PCOS. So welcome to everyone. Thank you for all of you tuning in. We have someone from Northwest, from Linden, so all over South Africa, which is really great. Okay, so if everyone has your workbook ready, I will be going through that in this session. So I decided not to do a presentation, but rather do a workbook so we can have a really interactive class or webinar, and that you actually get the most out of this webinar. That all the practical tools, all the tips you need to actually walk away with practical things that you can implement and start seeing results. Okay. So for those that are new to the club, I'm going to share a bit about my story and then we'll go into the webinar. So I'm Bea. I am a holistic nutritionist and a Pilates instructor. And I've had the Healthy Woman Club now open for 3 years. And over the past 3 years, we helped so many women balance their hormones, reduce unwanted symptoms. So my story is the reason I opened the club. So I was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome when I was about 20. I'm 32 now. So it's been my 12-year journey. And of course, in the beginning, my main symptom, and while I'm talking, you can actually let me know in the chat box, what is your main symptoms? Okay. So my main symptom was dark facial hair. And it took me a long time going to many specialists and doctors to actually find out I have PCOS. So I went to an endocrinologist. She actually put me through an MRI scan. If any one of you has ever been through an MRI, okay, facial hair, it is quite traumatic. And you'll see now it's not necessary to actually get a diagnosis. But anyway, and then of course I was put on birth control and sent off. And I felt super alone because I didn't have any other guidance except that I was diagnosed with this huge syndrome, and I was told that I will be infertile, and that I will never be able to heal ultimately. That was the main thing. And it completely weighed me down. And I gained about 12 kilograms in that time. Yeah, hard to lose weight. So I gained about 12 kilograms, mainly because of birth control. I had severe anger outbursts. My mood was so bad that my mom said I needed help. And I think that was the moment where I decided, well, there has to be something natural. There has to be something else. And I decided to go off birth control. Okay, but I'm going to sidetrack a little bit. So in that time, I was studying environmental science. I have a master's degree, and I was working in the groundwater industry for many years. So I'm a researcher and I'm a scientist, and I have that brain. So I needed to know, why is this PCOS thing so difficult? So I really researched it for many years, and of course the trial and error. So I've been through all the trial and errors and the tears. So I really hope this webinar helps you to have a quicker result and not go through all of the trauma that I did. Okay, eventually I studied holistic nutrition, and that is when, well, after healing, after quitting the pill and doing all the things that you'll learn in the webinar, I just knew this information is really, really super important to teach women. Okay, so that is a short summary of my story and just the drive. So I'm really passionate to help you. So I'm grateful that you came today, because this time is your time to heal. So I am acknowledging that you're actually spending this time. to come and listen to this webinar. So let's jump into it. Okay. So I'm going to have my workbook ready with me on my other phone. So you can also have it with you. So I will ask a few questions throughout. You can put it in the chat box. If you're open, you can always share your answers with me. Put your mic on, put your video on, and we can have a discussion if you like, if you're comfortable. Okay. Because it's all about having this time and asking the questions that you really, really want answers for. Okay. So let's start with the question, what is PCOS? So PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, affects 1 in 10 women. And it's called a syndrome because it's a collection of symptoms. So all 4 of us, our PCOS might look different, but we all diagnosed with the same thing. That's why it's quite a tricky syndrome. Okay. Essentially, to make it very simple, is if you have polycystic ovary, if you have PCOS, your body is struggling to ovulate. And once you're not ovulating, you have irregular cycles. The other underlying thing that all of us have with PCOS is that we have higher levels of androgens or male hormones in our system. Okay. That's also the way that they diagnose us, is with that blood test. So the beautiful thing of being a woman and having a menstrual cycle is that it is our report card. And when it is out of balance, it will quickly show you something is off. So in a way, our hormones are really superpowers. And I know some of us, we don't always see that, but it's also the thing that will quickly show you if something is off balance. But the beautiful thing also is that it will show you when things are going good as well. So I think ultimately the big thing we always want to achieve when we work with PCOS is getting your body into a rhythm of natural ovulation. So ovulation is not only about fertility and pregnancy. It is when your body is in a healthy state, not in survival mode, you will produce a fertile egg. It's like a tree. A tree is healthy when you look at the fruit. And we can quickly see when a tree is not healthy, it doesn't produce fruit, or the fruit is small, okay, so that is the analogy. So it's the same with our bodies. And ultimately achieving natural ovulation, which is possible, you can actually put your PCOS symptoms into remission. Can I get a heart for that? Because that's something that I didn't know when I was diagnosed. Another thing that I want to get over to you is I want to bring the positivity back, because I know it's very heavy to get a diagnosis like PCOS. And we walk out of a doctor's appointment and we feel the world just changed. Yes, I really understand that. So my personal story and many clients I worked with, I've seen beautiful results. Great. Okay, so that is what PCOS is. The main thing is we're struggling to ovulate. We have higher levels of male hormones. And when we have male hormones, elevated male hormones, we get the dark facial hair. Our hair thins. We get acne. Okay. Okay, so common symptoms. So would you mind, if you are comfortable? If you're not comfortable, 100% fine. I know I got a facial hair in one of the comments. That is definitely a symptom, because that's a symptom of high testosterone. Okay. So other common symptoms are weight gain, insulin resistance, having acne, skin tags, oily skin, of course, irregular ovulation and irregular menstrual cycles. The weight gain that we normally get linked to insulin resistance is normally in the middle, the abdomen. Okay. So now in your workbook on page, let me just check, page 2, I asked you the question, what is your main symptoms? And then what treatments are you currently using? Okay, you can write it for yourself. Of course, you can put it in the chat box. So I can assume if you were diagnosed, the doctor normally recommends using the pill. If you have something like facial hair, they recommend using aldactone, which brings down your androgens. Some even use bracing. Okay, awesome. Okay, on thyroid medication. Okay, awesome. So some even recommend metformin, which is actually a diabetic medicine. Okay, so those are normally the conventional treatments. Now I want to ask you the question, how do you want to feel? Take a minute. How we think about ourselves has a profound effect on how we actually feel. Not tired, right? And I really, it's again bringing that positivity back to understanding that our body always wants to heal. When a fruit is not healthy, the tree actually just wants more nutrients. Or if there's something underlying, the tree will always want to produce healthy fruits. That's the same with our bodies. And I think it's not what I think. I really know it's important for us to bring the positivity back into how we speak to ourselves. And it is difficult, especially if we're struggling with being tired, having facial hair. For me, that was one of the most embarrassing things that's ever happened in my life, is actually having this dark hair. I mean, you can't actually explain it to someone that's never experienced it before. And it really, it hurts in a way, because it's such a symptom that, I mean, to explain to someone that you actually have a beard, and it's not your fault, but it's something that you have to deal with. So that is why I'm asking the question, how do you want to feel? And writing these positive affirmations, because that helps you to, while you're making sustainable changes to things that you can control, and that's the focus of this whole webinar, is the things that you can control, things that you eat, and the things that's in your current environment, like your toxins. Right? So take a moment, write that down. How do you want to feel? Now, okay, PCOS diagnosis. So it's important for us as well to understand the diagnoses, because there's different criteria. And I get a lot of Instagram messages and emails and clients that come to me, and they were diagnosed with PCOS just with a scan, just with an ultrasound. And that's not really the full diagnosis. Okay. So there's two main systems that the doctors use. The first one is the Rotterdam criteria that they use, and the other one is the androgen excess and PCOS society criteria. So these are the main three things that they actually should look at. The first one is they ask you if you have, or they look at your cycle tracking. Are your cycles irregular? Irregular cycles are normally cycles that are longer than 35 days. Okay? Then they have to do a blood test to test your androgens. So they normally have to look at testosterone, free testosterone that comes from your ovaries. And then the other one that they can test is DHEA. This is the male hormones that's produced in your adrenal glands. So if they test that and any of them are high, then they can see, okay, you have testosterone, so it normally comes from your ovaries, or DHEA that comes from the adrenal glands. And the last thing that they can look at is doing a scan and then picking up if you have any cysts, which I'm also going to tell you, you don't really have cysts. Okay. I'm going to go into that now, but that's just the diagnosis. So I want to ask all of you, did the doctors do a blood analysis with you? You can just give me a yes or a no in the chat box. Okay. And I made this workbook for you so you actually have all of the information you need, so that if you want to do more blood tests, you also have that with you. Okay. So let me go into the cysts. So you rather have underdeveloped follicles. So when we okay, after our period, we go into our follicular phase. We have about 12 little follicles. And when we're a teenager, we actually have 24. So it's these little follicles, I call it a race. So they're in a race. And at ovulation, the healthiest one wins. And that one is chosen to actually release your egg. Okay, that's the natural process of ovulation. But when we don't ovulate, these little follicles keep on growing because they're actually trying to push out that egg. And then if you scan that ovary at that time, you will pick up these underdeveloped follicles. But ovaries are dynamic and they change. So if you scan your ovaries one cycle, which you didn't ovulate, but the next cycle you actually ovulated, it would be like a clean surface. So the word cystic actually means follicles. There's a difference between the follicles that we see on a scan when we have polycystic ovaries to a cyst, like cystic ovarian cysts. I'm sorry. There's two differences. Ovarian cysts are literally cysts, and they can burst and they can cause a lot of pain. Okay, that's two different things. That was very eye-opening when I discovered that. Okay, so that's a difference for me about polycystic ovarian syndrome and having ovarian cysts. Right. They're actually thinking of changing the name. They're rather looking at something like metabolic syndrome, because ultimately that is the problem. That's the drivers that's causing your body not to ovulate and produce androgens. The other name they're looking at is at AAE, and ovulatory androgen excess. That makes a lot of sense for me. Okay, but we're not there yet. We're sticking with PCOS for now. Okay. Now the big question, and I struggled with this for many years. Why do we have PCOS? We don't really know. The science can't give us exact answer, but we can take it back. So I'm on page, let me just check for you. I'm on page 4 of your workbook. So I'm explaining the PCOS pyramid now. Okay. So we can always say it might be our genes. Yes, it might. So we might be susceptible to developing insulin resistance, which is actually a driver or root cause of PCOS. That might be in our genes. And yes, our genes might be more susceptible to having a bit of a disconnect between our brain and our ovaries, because that's a big thing. Hormones are all about the communication between the brain and the ovaries. That's our network. Okay. And that's also something that's actually the main thing. That's the thing that establishes when we're young. And that's why a menstrual cycle takes about 12 years to develop. It's this communication stream that takes about 12 years to develop. Okay, so going back to genes, we might be more susceptible that there might be an issue with that communication line. But I'm not always struggling with, okay, that's 100% fine. Okay. Okay, so I rather look at epigenetics. So epigenetics means that your genes activate in a certain environment. So in the case with PCOS, you might have, and there's also one of these things, we can't really pinpoint it, but you might have been exposed to a toxin. They're picking up high levels of BPA, if you ever heard of BPA, and plastics in women with PCOS. So you might have been exposed to a toxin, or even you a super emotional person. If you ever heard of it, a highly sensitive person, it's called the HSP, is that we hold so much emotion in our bodies, which can also be a stressor, which can actually cause PCOS. So again, these are all the things that might be the reasons for it. Can't really pinpoint it, but it might be a reason. But now we can go to the things that we actually control, the drivers of PCOS. So there are 5 types of PCOS. Don't know if you ever heard about the types before. I certainly didn't in my doctor's office. They never told me there's different underlying root causes. Okay. Insulin resistance, big driver for PCOS. About 70% of all women have insulin resistance. Inflammation, all women have underlying higher levels of inflammation in our bodies. And then the other one is adrenal fatigue, thyroid issues, and then something like post-pill. So you've been on birth control, and then if they scan your ovaries on birth control and off birth control for that first 3 months, they will pick up underdeveloped follicles because you don't ovulate on the pill. The post-pill one is normally not, I don't want to say a real PCOS, but it's more symptoms of PCOS, but it's sort of, it's not permanent in that way. So the pill causes PCOS in that way for that short time, but then your body normally recalibrates really quickly. Okay. I've been going very quickly. I think I'm excited. Is there any questions so far? Okay. And bear with me because I am a science mind. So I tend to go into a lot of detail, but I think it is, however, very important for us to understand it. Because knowledge is ultimately the power that we have. Okay. Just check. Awesome. So for the last hour, I want to really spend time on the food. Oh, wait, sorry. Okay. Before that, I want to quickly talk about how the pill is not a solution. And I'm going to be blunt about it. But if we look at our ovulation cycle, and that's ultimately the thing that we want to restore with PCOS, because that's a thing that we're struggling with. And what the pill ironically does is it stops ovulation. And it causes insulin resistance. So for me, in my mind, it's really, really, really not the solution. It can cause a lot of inflammation in the body as well. And what the pill ultimately does, it stops the communication between the brain and the ovaries. And like I said, this is the communication network that you actually want to restore. So I'm definitely not a big fan of it. I'm definitely not talking about pill for contraception, all of that. I'm just isolating when the pill is prescribed, regulate your cycle and fix your PCOS. And all of those are definitely not true. Firstly, it can't fix your cycle because a healthy cycle is a cycle in which you ovulate. I think in today's webinar, that's the word you're going to hear the most. So why would you use a medication to stop ovulation when we actually want to get it healthy again? Because ultimately the fruit of the tree is going to show you how healthy you are. Your egg, the one that you produce at ovulation, is so important for us, for our health. Another thing about ovulation, so you have these little follicles and the one pops at ovulation. This little gland that was the follicle is the gland that produces natural progesterone. Progesterone is so good for us. It calms our nervous system. It prevents PMS. It's good for our skin. It's good for our brain. It's really important in our overall health. That's also why many women on birth control, their mood is very unstable and they are super anxious and depressed. It's just because you're not producing the natural progesterone. And in birth control, they give us progestin, but your body, it's synthetic, so your body doesn't pick it up as the same chemical. Okay. Just a note, I'm not against anything, okay? I'm pro-health, I'm pro-information, and of course you make your own informed choices. But it's important for us to know how our body works. Okay, so that is why I'm not a fan if they prescribe the pill to fix your PCOS. It won't. So now you have underlying root causes that's actually driving your PCOS. And these are the things that I mentioned. Insulin resistance. So if you insulin resistant, your cells actually struggle to take in the energy. And that's why you're super fatigued. And you gain weight because there's so much insulin in your bloodstream. Okay. And the other thing is, the other driver is that you have a lot of inflammation in your body. And I like to explain inflammation in this way. So you have your brain is and your hypothalamus in your brain is your main control center for your hormones. And then it's like your Wi-Fi router. And then you have your cell phone, which is your ovaries. Okay, so we all understand that. There's a signal that goes between this. If we have inflammation, and that normally comes from the gut, it triggers this immune response, and we have these little inflammatory thingies called cytokines, and they flood your body. So what it does, it disrupts this communication. And that is why inflammation in the body disrupts our hormones. Okay. I'm going very detailed again, but is it making sense? Please pop me anything in the chat box. Yes, no, any questions? Right. Okay. Yes. Okay, great. So the main thing that I want to get across is that definitely making sense. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. So the main thing is you have drivers. And again, if you have insulin, okay, I'm going to make the connection now. Now you have insulin resistance. When you are insulin resistant, your ovaries produce testosterone instead of estrogen. And then, of course, what do you get? Male pattern hair growth on the face, or your hair starts falling out, or you get hormonal acne, especially here because of the higher hormones, male hormones. That is why the drivers are actually causing the symptoms. And in modern medicine, they look at the symptom, but they don't look at the driver. Okay, that's very important. The other main thing is inflammation does the same. It also stimulates your ovaries. It makes more testosterone and DHEA from your adrenals. The other root cause, the adrenal fatigue, is normally due to stress. So insulin inflammation is due to a lot of inflammatory foods and toxins. We're going to go into that a lot. And then adrenal fatigue, you normally don't have insulin resistance with this type of PCOS, but your adrenals are super stressed. And they are releasing male hormones called DHEA. And that also, DHEAS, okay, sorry, that produces also male symptoms. Okay. So that is why the drivers are so important. So now let's go to the food as medicine part, because this is the thing that you can control. Okay. I took a lot of time thinking about what my main steps were, and I've applied it with many clients now, and these are really proven steps to help you feel much better. And I also want to say, put your PCOS in remission, because it is definitely possible. So the first one is balancing your blood sugar. I chose this one because, let's say if I started saying you have to stop your sugar, it's much harder. Balancing your blood sugar, I have 6 proven steps for you, and I put it in your workbook. It is as simple as, let's say the first one is eating a balanced breakfast. So let's first look at blood sugar. So have you ever eaten, let's say oats, just oats, and you had that crash afterwards? Or you had a piece of cake or a chocolate bar, and after about 45 minutes, you had that crash in energy. Just give me a heart on that one, if you have ever experienced that crash. Sometimes you even feel like irritated after eating something, and something is off. That's normally a sign that your blood sugar is unstable. And for us, with PCOS, you sometimes already struggle with unbalanced blood sugar. So that is definitely the first place to start. And trust me, the way you start your day really, really matters. It can be as simple as eating a good protein and a good fat with a carbohydrate in the morning. That's balance. And you can taste it, okay? One day, eat a croissant and see how you feel. That's also always a question I always ask my clients. How do you feel? Because eat a croissant on an empty stomach and write down how you feel afterwards. You're probably going to say you're tired, you're craving sugar, you're feeling irritated, you want to eat sweets the whole day long. That's unbalanced blood sugar. Then the next day, you start with a boiled egg or 2, bit of avo on sourdough toast. And then again, you check in with yourself. How do you feel an hour afterwards? You're probably going to be less hungry. You're not going to crave sugars. And your mood is going to be improved. And especially if in the second half of the cycle, closer to your period, you will have less PMS. That's the beauty of balanced blood sugar. And on the plan that I gave you, it's 1 table, you can start writing in your steps, balanced blood sugar. What's the things that you actually did? And please email me after 21 days. I really want to hear your feedback, because it's simple, but it's super, super effective. I gave you all the 6 steps. The other steps are including apple cider vinegar before a meal. You don't have to do it before every meal, but it's sort of my really cheap one, because it helps actually the glucose go into the cell. And let's say it's your birthday and you're eating cake. Please celebrate. Life is about balance. But eat a balanced breakfast, do a bit of apple cider in water, and then do your cake. Okay. And then something simple as moving after your meal, especially if it's high in carbohydrates. Let's say you do a pasta, it is more high in energy. And if you have insulin resistance, we are just more sensitive. It is just how it is. And the main things with that is you're going to be sensitive to sugars, which is also carbohydrates. On that note, I'm not saying go low carb at all. Okay. Carbohydrates are really important, especially for women. We need them to ovulate. There are better carbohydrates. So if I talk about complex carbohydrates, these are the ones that slowly release into your bloodstream. These are sweet potatoes, butternuts, all of the whole foods. They have high in fiber as well. There's a big difference eating a sweet potato, or a potato even, that's good, it's a whole food, than eating a piece of white bread or white pasta without any fiber. One is going to spike your glucose, your blood sugar, and you're going to dip. Okay. It's all about that dip. And I think the more you check in with yourself, the more you're going to realize you're going to actually start feeling this blood sugar. Okay. So you have the 6 steps. Take them, apply them, see how you feel. Even if you just do the six steps for the first 21 days, you're going to start feeling better. Okay. Then the second step, quitting refined sugars. You probably heard this one before. And I think we know sugars are, they're not good for us. So I'm not going to be that person because we understand. But with PCOS, it can be more difficult to quit sugar, especially if you have insulin resistance, because again, your body, your cells are not taking the energy in. So you're going to feel you need that. But trust me, if you really try and reduce, I love the word reduce because it doesn't trigger me as much. The one thing with PCOS, my diagnosis, it also triggered my emotional eating when I was younger. So I'm a really balanced person, but I can definitely feel when I do refined sugars. It just affects me so much. So I switch to more natural options. Honey is fine. I do dates, and that's enough. And of course, when I do a chocolate or a cake or whatever, I stick to balancing my blood sugar tips. Okay. One thing that you can do when you are reducing your sugars is using a good magnesium supplement, because that will also help reduce your cravings. Also, if you crave a lot of chocolate, it definitely can be a sign of magnesium deficiency. Yeah. Start with a savory breakfast. Don't restrict your calories too much. I'm not a fan of calorie counting because different foods react differently in our bodies. I'm a whole foods lady. We can eat sweet potatoes, ladies. We can eat potatoes. They are good for us. You're not going to eat 10 potatoes. Okay. That whole foods is a thing that has the fiber in that's going to keep you full for longer. Okay. Step 3. Heal your gut, especially if you have been on birth control, because it definitely damages your gut lining. A lot of our inflammation, that inflammatory reaction, comes from our gut. So I can always recommend a really good liquid probiotic. I have a good one in my shop. It's called Gut Fix. If you want more information, let me know. I always recommend liquid because the little probiotics are actually alive. As you go capsules, 80% of them are actually dead. So you spending 400 Rand, actually want to save your money. It's not going to be worth it. Okay. Then again, healing your gut. Bone broth is great for your gut. And then fiber, high fiber. So your little good microbes, the good ones, love fiber. That's what they eat. So you're actually feeding your gut when you go whole foods, when you go a lot of fruit, veggies, all of those good things. You're actually feeding your gut. Another good supplement. So, okay, I always say food is medicine first. We can't really out-supplement a bad diet. Also, if you go more anti-inflammatory foods, I like to think whole foods, sort of Mediterranean vibes, because the fish is anti-inflammatory with all the omegas in. We're getting all the veggies and fruits. All of that is anti-inflammatory. Instead of trying to out-supplement and reduce inflammation, but we're keeping the river going of all the stuff that we actually put on. Yeah. Okay. One thing about a gut as well. Conventional dairy is not necessarily our friend anymore. It's so pasteurized that it causes so much inflammation in the body. A little bit of cheese out every now and again is fine, but doing a lot of dairy, unfortunately, just causes so much stress on your gut. I've seen so much, especially women struggling with period pain. This is just a side note, but period pain, 2 weeks dairy-free, the period pain is less. Okay, so again, this is a beautiful way for you to test how your body is actually doing. And then for thyroid, gluten is not necessarily the best for thyroid because you're already in an inflamed state. So I think test it out. Again, gluten, it's a controversial topic for me because we've always eaten gluten, but these days, gluten is super highly sprayed with glyphosate. So we're definitely reacting to the toxins in the modern day gluten. It's also GMO'd. And GMO'd means it's modified. So it's just showing up, especially if you get acne or any breakouts or mood issues or having a thyroid issue, go clean. Try and go as clean as possible. The toxic load on our bodies are also just it's so intense. And our liver, that was the note I wanted to add with sugar. So when we have PCOS, our liver is under pressure. It's just really struggling to balance all our hormones. And the two main things that affect our liver a lot is sugar and alcohol. So again, loving your liver. I have a few nice juices that I can actually send to you tomorrow. I'll do that for everyone on the call. A few liver-loving juices that can really boost your liver and get some toxins out. Because one thing about toxins, it's not stored in the liver, it's stored in our fat cells. Okay. So if we have more fat cells, we're actually holding on to a lot of toxins. So it's important for us to help our liver get the toxins out. Okay. Last step, mindful eating. It's simple, but it's powerful. And I wanted to include this as an emotional support step. So all of us, we received a diagnosis. And it's been difficult. The emotional trauma, the emotional stress, the uncomfortable symptoms like facial hair, fatigue, weight gain, it's difficult to deal with. But what we can control is how mindful we are about what we eat, how we talk to ourselves. And it's more than what we eat. It's actually how we nourish our bodies. It's a different word. So my mindful eating tips for you today is don't eat in front of your computer. I know we're busy. I know our lunch times is only an hour long and we still have a lot of emails to check, but take that hour. Look at the food that you have. Take it in. Because digestion really starts with the food that you look at, the way you smell. That's where it starts. So you can actually support your gut health by just being mindful of what you eat. Your body, your digestion knows what you're going to eat before you even chew it. How crazy is that? The smell of a food lets your digestion know, oh, some a choppy is going in. I mean, that is so phenomenal. So mindful. Be mindful of how you talk to yourself. And yeah. Let me just see what my time is. Okay. So we have about 10 minutes left. I know I went quickly. I'm so passionate about this. Now it's time for questions. Please, if you have any, let me know. I would love to support you on your specific journey. Any questions that you brought to the session? Did you learn something? I think that's important for me to know that this can actually help. That you actually have a guide, that you actually have something to follow for maybe the next 3 weeks and see how you feel. Anything? Okay. If there's no questions, I'm going to make a note because I want to send you some liver juices. This is the extra. I'll send you some tomorrow on the email. And then, of course, you're more. Should I cut dairy out completely? I know. It's one of those questions. Okay, what I always say. Track your cycle. Know where you are on your cycle. Cut it out for the 2 weeks before your period. That's your most sensitive time with nutrition, especially if you have any pain. I would say if you get any phlegm, any ear infections, and horrible PMS, reduce your dairy overall. Okay. It's going to make a significant difference. Start with your milk. Just swap out your milk. You can still do a bit of cheese. Okay. Cheese is okay. And again, track. See how you feel. Look at your symptoms and see if they actually reduce. Okay. That's my main recommendation. We all individual, so we respond differently. But unfortunately, conventional dairy causes a lot of inflammation for us. Okay. Cheese and a little bit of cheese every now and again is not the issue. Okay. The main thing about when I talk about inflammatory foods is if you understand that this is your communication center between your ovaries and your the sulfur and the Hurter. If you go anti-inflammatory for most of the times, your body can handle a little bit of cheese or a glass of wine every now and again. That's fine. But having it every day can disrupt your hormones overall. Okay. But again, track and let me know. Okay. Sharp. Thank you. Especially if you have period pain. Yeah, that's a big one. Or gut. While you're healing your gut as well. Because again, inflammation comes from there. So if you constantly trigger that immune system, you're going to struggle with all your other symptoms. Okay, ladies? Please let me know. Email me if you have any questions. I am here for personal consultations, whatever you need. Okay, we have a membership that you can join. So my main thing is that you don't go through this healing on your own. I was really alone, and that's why I started the club. I enjoyed it. Okay. And thank you. Okay, awesome. Thanks, ladies. So grateful that you're here. And have a wonderful night. Bye. Cool thing.